Hello, viewer. Are you sick and tired of engaging with the exact same right-wing talking points that have been refuted 1,000 times with respect to single-payer healthcare being too expensive? Well, never fear. This video exists to save you from wasting time arguing with them, as well as serving as a resource providing undisputable evidence that a national healthcare plan is not only cheaper, but yields superior public health outcomes at the same time, as well as higher life expectancies across the board. The right-wing narrative with respect to healthcare goes something like this. That is, the real issue is actually too much government regulation and intervention as well as corporatism, or private insurance companies colluding with one another to price gouge the consumer, and that by nationalizing our healthcare system, by making it into a public utility, our taxes will exponentially go up to compensate. Therefore, we are better off either paying out of pocket or purchasing private insurance from a competitive healthcare market with lots of free choice and options. I'm not going to delve too far into explaining why our current system is, in fact, true capitalism and not corporatism, and that this is all that it can ever be since the model is predicated on maximizing profit over meeting human need, and therefore the notion that it isn't true capitalism is a gigantic no true Scotsman fallacy on behalf of the right wing. So instead, I shall be dealing with two claims specifically. Number one, that a national healthcare plan would be more expensive than a competitive free market model, and number two, that a national healthcare plan would be less efficient and yield worse public health outcomes than a private market model. The following graph from Our World in Data charts life expectancy versus healthcare expenditure per capita from the years 1970 to 2018. Notice how, despite spending more money than every other first world country on the graph, the United States has the lowest life expectancy of them all. Keep in mind that every other nation on this chart all either have a single-payer healthcare system or a public option in place, while America's system is, for all intents and purposes, the exemplary free market model. And there you have it. We are but a single graph into the video, and I have already dispelled the myth that the market model is somehow cheaper and more efficient. But I know some of you more stubborn rightists out there are not satisfied with merely one study, so I shall now present you with several studies. Here is another chart, this time from the OECD showcasing pharmaceutical spending per capita in each country. Once again, when compared to the rest of the developed world and even many developing countries, all of which have some variation of a national healthcare plan or another, we here in America spend significantly more for our prescription drugs than anybody else. Here is yet another chart from OECD showcasing the percentage of gross domestic product that each country spends on healthcare. Note that while the rest of the countries listed are spending between 7 to 12% of their GDP on healthcare, we here in America are spending nearly 20% of our GDP on healthcare. And so as it turns out, Americans are spending more than anybody else on the planet for their healthcare services. And if this is the case, surely, since we are paying more for our care, that we are getting what we are paying for, right? Well, not necessarily. Despite being the richest country on Earth, despite us spending so much more than anybody else on the planet for the same services, the World Health Organization ranks the United States 37th place out of 191 countries with respect to the quality of care. Barring Singapore, virtually every other country on this list that ranks above us has one version or another of a national healthcare plan. I repeat, despite being the richest country on Earth, we spend roughly twice as much for the same services as everybody else, and yet we rank 37th on the list with respect to the quality of care, average life expectancy, and healthcare outcomes. And it gets even worse. Here in the United States, over 45,000 people die every single year due to a lack of access to healthcare. These deaths are not caused because there is a shortage of available services that people need. The services are there and they're on the table. Rather, these are the estimated preventable deaths that occur every year because people do not have the money with which to afford said services. Want to know how many people are dying due to lack of access to healthcare in Canada? 0. How about Germany? 0. How about France? How about Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Switzerland? 0. Japan? 0. This is only a problem here in the United States because the insurance cartels have a monopoly on healthcare resources and consumers have absolutely zero bargaining power. Not to mention the fact that the governments won't step in and try and negotiate down the prices of our healthcare resources either. But according to you right-wingers, this is actually a good thing, right? Since any and all government's intervention in the economy is inherently a bad thing. So consumers are just better off being price gouged and denied care on completely arbitrary grounds under a private insurance system. Another fun fact about our system: medical bills are the #1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States. On the other hand, nobody's going bankrupt in any of these other countries for their healthcare, and their public health markers blow ours out of the water by a wide margin. But that's okay, because here in America, we have the freedom to get price gouged, get sick, go bankrupt, and die, right? Apparently that's a better alternative than paying a little bit more in taxes every single year, according to you people. So in the wake of this, why is our healthcare system so expensive? Because of the profit motive. That, combined with the fact that healthcare is a price inelastic good, or a good that will always be in demand no matter what due to the very nature of human mortality. We are living organisms. We get old, we get hurt, we get sick, our parts wear out, and eventually, sooner or later, we need to go and see a doctor for it. And in the face of this, private insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry have a direct incentive to take advantage of the situation and conjuring whatever arbitrary excuses needed to deny you coverage and making you pay for most, if not all, of the procedure. Why do you think it is that pre-existing conditions are a thing? Why do you think it is that they layer their healthcare plans into individual packages so that you're stuck with the ultimatum of either paying for cheap and shitty substandard care or being price gouged out the ass for quality care? Why do you think it is that this is the case, that despite the fact that you could have been paying into an insurance pool for decades, only to miss a payments for 1 month when you also happen to get sick and need coverage, and despite all the money that you may have put into the insurance pool for decades, the company won't give you coverage? This system is the way it is by design. It is from the top down completely predicated on the exploitation of the sick and the dying, because you can't not have healthcare. You, like everybody else, are a living organism with a finite lifespan, and it doesn't matter how healthy you might eat, it doesn't matter how much dieting and exercising, and how well you might take care of yourself. Sooner or later, you are going to get hurt, you're going to get sick, you're going to grow old, you're going to be involved in an accident, and if you're American, you will be forced to do business with these greedy, rapacious middlemen that will be demanding a pound of flesh from you. Conservatives will blame Obamacare for why our healthcare system sucks and condemn it for being some sort of far-left government policy, when the exact opposite is true. What we know as Obamacare was originally a Republican healthcare plan drafted by the Heritage Foundation as an alternative to single-payer. And the original reason that it was drafted was on behalf of the interests of the private health insurance industry in an effort to stabilize their system, since as it turns out, when your economic model is predicated on exploitation and profit-seeking at all costs, it tends to inevitably crash and burn spectacularly over and over again. And so, in order to provide the system with some semblance of stability, the health insurance racketeers introduced some regulations, which included some very minor compromises with the consumer. Effectively, they were saying that we, the insurance cartels, won't be throttling you as badly as we used to, but now you are required by law to purchase health insurance. And just so you know, despite this right-wing Heritage Foundation drafted government mandate, the system is still very much flimsy and unstable, as Americans are still paying out the ass for substandard coverage while tens of millions of people at this time are without health insurance during a global pandemic when people need it the most. And so before we close, allow me to provide you with multiple studies which show that if we had a national healthcare plan, if we had single payer, we would actually save money on top of getting quality care in the long run. The first study I have to show you is from the Political Economy Research Institute, which shows that a Medicare for All type system would reduce total health expenditure in the United States by nearly 10%, cutting it down from an annual cost of about $3.24 trillion in 2017 down to $2.93 trillion in the same year. while at the same time saving the public at large an aggregate of roughly $5 trillion between the years 2017 and 2026. Another study done from Yale epidemiologists found that healthcare spending would be reduced by an average of $450 billion per year under a Medicare for All national healthcare plan, while saving an average of 68,000 lives per year. Remember when I mentioned the study a moment ago that showed that tens of thousands of Americans die every single year due to a lack of access to healthcare because they don't have the money to purchase said services, not because those services aren't available? Well, yeah, this study too shows that we would be saving tens of thousands of lives per year, as well as nearly $1 trillion per year on our healthcare services in the aggregates. And I have just annihilated the entire right-wing narrative of free healthcare being too expensive. And so there you have it. Free healthcare is both cheaper and superior for public health. I hope this video has been informative for those of you who are uninitiated, and for those of you who are initiated, I hope I have provided you with some new talking points and arguments and evidence to bring to the table whenever you find yourself debating about healthcare. Anyways, Merry Christmas to all, and Happy New Year's to all. This has been a video essay by yours truly, your friendly neighborhood fellow traveler. Peace out.